New year, same as the last year. It's a normal human concept to try and think about renewal, to think about change, to think about things being better. But as a person with a mental illness, can't afford to think that way. Can't afford to bow to the pressure to put more of an emphasis on the new year than it has at any other time. We're going to talk about that and a lot more on Shattered the Podcast today. Here we go. New year, same as the last year. So often we just, I guess, as human beings, try to assign meaning to a particular time or date. Goes back to pre-everything times where at Christmas and the harvest, not at Christmas, but at the harvest time, humans tried to ascribe a particular significance to the shortest day of the year, the longest day of the year. Modern times, it's the New Year's resolution. This year is going to be a better year. Well, I think the last 3 years have shown us that that's a false dichotomy. We can try to hope that the next year will be better. But for me, as a person with a mental illness, I can't afford to think that way. The new year is exactly the same as the old year. New Year's Day is exactly the same as New Year's Eve. There is no difference. But even I feel the temptation to ascribe a hope and an idea that, maybe this year I can do things a little bit differently. Maybe this year I can be better. Maybe this year will be the year that change really takes place for me. And I mean, it's a wonderful thought that somehow this year is going to be better than any other year. It's been a weird time for me because I've been struggling with this a lot. And there are so many times where I do wish that things would just be better, that I wouldn't feel the way that I feel. And I consciously try not to think about the passage of time. It was hard this year because I had to say to myself that it was 15 years since I got hurt, since the day I got injured and ended up with PTSD, which was later diagnosed as CPTSD, complex PTSD, because it wasn't one incident that caused my injury. It was many. My injury, the day that I was attacked, one psych called it the straw that broke the camel's back. I was walking on thin ice, and one day a bad event happened at a bad time, and it was the breaking point for my mind. And that idea that it's been 15 years, I mean, think about it, 15 years. It's older than two of my kids. 15 years, every day thinking about this rubbish, thinking about being broken, thinking about how I'm not good enough, thinking about trying to kill myself. So I understand that temptation to say, okay, 2022, it's got to be different. We're not going to do the same things that we did last year. We're going to do these things. We're going to do. Change doesn't happen that way. Change happens in small increments. And you need to find out what your motivators are. Did a couple of things this year that could be seen as being massive. Last year, big one, of course, was Shattered the Podcast. I needed a way for my pain to have a purpose. The problems, the pain that I'd put my family through had to mean something. And that was to try and share about what it's like to live with mental illness, because I've seen and I've been a part of discrimination against people with mental illness just because I haven't understood their situation. I mean, nobody's going to be mean to a person with a disability or a mental illness on purpose. I think we can agree that most of our society would not engage in such behavior. The people that do are an aberration. But when we don't understand the fundamental life experience of a person with mental illness, how their view is distorted. Like, you remember when you were a kid, you had those tubes that you could look through and you could turn them in the kaleidoscope. Imagine you saw the world through a kaleidoscope and you had to try and explain that to people. To you, it looks normal. To you, it's, this is how I see things. Everything is fractured and I don't understand why you don't understand that. If we don't understand that basic single concept that people are seeing the world in a different way than I am, how can we possibly include them? And I'm not talking inclusion like you on the news and stuff. Oh, we need to be inclusive. I'm talking about understanding the pain of a person that has been through something traumatic, or their mind has a chemistry that's been altered in such a way that they can't see things the same way that we see things. That to me is inclusion, is understanding that, hang on, this man or woman or whatever, I guess, doesn't see things the way that I see things. And I need to be aware of that and understand that and have compassion for that. I mentioned last week my in-laws. Now, I've done some pretty disgraceful things. I've lost my temper at them, not necessarily at them, but just my frustrations. My mental illness has been acting up. It's been a bad day, and I've put myself in a situation that I shouldn't have been in. I should have just walked away. Nowadays I would, and I do. When a situation's becoming to a point where I can't deal with it, where my mind is just, it's attacking me and it's becoming overwhelming. And that's one thing that people, I guess, don't understand is in that situation, in my head, I can hear a cacophony of voices. It's like a choir where every person in the choir is singing a different song. It's all at the same volume, but it's a different song. And I don't know what people are talking about. And then something happens in the real world outside of me, and it adds to that cacophony. And that's what I've reacted to. Not just with my in-laws, with my kids, with my wife, with everybody I know. That has basically been, if people have known me to lose my temper or lose my cool, that is 99.9999% of the reason why that has happened. It's because I've had people screaming in my head all day, and then when somebody comes at me with a criticism or a perceived criticism, it can be too much for me to handle. And my fight or flight kicks in, and my fight or flight is a fight. And I arc up. I will tend to react loudly to try and get my voice heard over the voices in my head. And I'm not talking about voices like, demonic beings in my head. I'm talking about the range of my thoughts and the cacophony of my thoughts and the different conversations my mind is having with itself, and the weird thoughts that are going through my head that, like a dream, your mind tries to coalesce them into a story. So who's going to write a story like, I was riding a dragon wearing a pair of jeans, and then it started to rain yogurt, and then I was being chased. Pretty much every dream I've ever had. And that's what's going on in my head. My brain is working overtime trying to figure out what the story is in my head. What's going on? Why are you feeling this way? Why is this upsetting you? This shouldn't upset you. And I'm incredibly grateful that my in-laws, particularly because, they're worried about their daughter, my wife. They're hoping that I will be the best man that I can be. But they've come to understand that perhaps I haven't realized some of the potential I showed. Perhaps I'm not the man that they hoped I would be. And in many ways, I agree with them. But it is a family that's willing to understand, to say, hang on, sometimes the way he acts, it's not him. It's his mental illness. Now, I don't know if they do this on a conscious level. Sometimes I don't think it is. I think it's just a subconscious thing. They want to understand. They want to be willing to give me the benefit of the doubt. That's what inclusion is when you talk mental illness. It's being willing to see that sometimes the way that they're acting, the way that they're coming across, is not them. It is their mental illness. It might be their symptoms. It might be just their daily struggle. I mean, if you came up to somebody in the middle of a marathon and said, I need you to just duck around to the shops for me real quick, buy me a packet of peanuts and come back, they're going to look at you flabbergasted. And that can often be what it's like for a person with mental illness. They've run a marathon in their mind for the whole day. And then you've come and asked them to quickly just run down to the shops when you've got a car and you can just get there in 2 seconds, but I have to run down there in the middle of this marathon. The little choices that you want to make to change don't have anything to do with the time of year. I mean, if you can use it as a motivator, fantastic. Great. God bless you. Good luck to you. I wish I could do it. But if you're like me and you can't do that, and by saying to yourself, I'm not going to do this for 2022, as soon as I do it in 2022, I'm going to feel like a failure, and I'm going to feel like a failure for the rest of the year. So I make changes when I'm able to, and I don't think about the passage of time. It's a human construct, time. You're seeing me in a moment that is in the past right now. This is the only way we can look at our memories. Otherwise, they're just gone. And in a very real way, they don't exist anymore. It's crazy when you think that something that doesn't exist anymore can affect you so deeply and profoundly. This year, you're going to notice a few changes to Shattered the podcast. We are going to do some seasons. Some people have asked us to tell a story over a number of weeks and months. My wife is going to get more involved, Mary, so I'm looking forward to having her on there. And I just want to thank everybody that's been watching and viewing and listening. We're being viewed about 2,500 times per month on YouTube, particularly. It's an incredible amount of listeners, but we do need you to like and share and subscribe just so that we can invite more and more people into this conversation. I do 100% wish you all the best for 2022. I do hope that it is a better year. Wouldn't take much to make it a better year, I reckon. Going to try and make it a good one. And that is my New Year's resolution. I'm going to try. I look forward very much to speaking to you next week. Drop us a line on the socials. Let us know what you're thinking. Be part of the conversation. Like, share, and subscribe. See you later. Thank you for listening to Shattered, the podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.